Hey there, I'm Lance and I'm a gamer.
And I'm Sam and I'm a non-gamer.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to help gamers find great games to play with non-gamers.
And today we're taking a look at Nanga Parbat by Dr. Finn's Games.
Nanga Parbat is a game in which you and one other player are going to be climbing the mountains in the Himalayas, and you're going to be using a Sherpa to help you along the way. You're going to be gathering sets of animals which you can use to take different actions, and you're going to try and exchange these groups of animals and your hikers for sets of points. This is a bit of a race game to get those points because it's first come, first serve. Let me show you how it works down below, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts on it as a gamer and non-gamer. All right, here's Nanga Parbat on the table. Let me show you guys how this abstract strategy game works, in which you are going to be climbing a mountain. And in this mountain, you're going to be trapping different animals, animeeples. As you can see, there are 6 different ones in the game. I'll cover each of those. And ultimately, you are going to be trying to have the most points by completing a certain set. And you'll be taking different actions with the animeeples that you gather throughout this game, placing your hikers and your camps on the different sites out here on this board. In more detail, how this game is going to work, one player will be the first player, the other player will be the second player, and you don't have to do it in the order that I showed you. Pink can go first, doesn't matter. Whoever is second, they will get to place the Sherpa, which is this bigger yellow meeple figure, on one of the 6 different sites here. And you can see each different site has 6 different boxes within that site. And so the second player may just place it right here on the 5. And that just dictates where the first player has to start the game. On your turn, it's very simple. What you are going to do is you're going to capture one of the animals that are in the region that the Sherpa is in. So if it were my turn, I could take any one of these 6 animals, and let's just say that I take this, I think this is a deer, musk deer or something of the sorts. Anyhow, I place it on my board with the matching icon right there, and I want to make sure to place it above this line here, as anything that is above this line, or at least on these 4 spots, is an unused animal, because each of these animals have different powers, which we'll come back to here in a minute. Wherever I took the animal from, I'm going to place one of my hikers, these little meeples here. I'm going to place that in the same spot, and then the corresponding number is going to dictate where the Sherpa goes. Now, in this case, the Sherpa is just going to simply stay on region 5, and that would mean that the pink player will have to play their turn in region 5. Now, if I had, let's say the game has progressed, and I've got 2 more meeples here, and they're all adjacent to one another. I've got 3 meeples here that are adjacent. I could take a 3rd step in my turn, and that is, or excuse me, this would be a 4th step in my turn, and that is to build a camp. Now, when I do this, I look up here at this chart, and you can see the camp icon here. It looks like a tent. The numbers listed here on the top are how many hikers that you need touching one another. So you can see here I've got 3 hikers that are all adjacent to one another. And I could build a camp, and this first column of 3 here tells me that I get 4 points. And so I will just take one of my cubes here, my scoring cubes, and place it on top of that box, and I would give myself 4 points. And while we're looking at this score chart right here, it's very important that you notice that each one of these boxes is only big enough to hold 1 cube. So if ever there comes a time when a player is going to pass someone on the score track right here, they will skip the spot that their opponent is on. So for instance, if the pink player were to gain 4 points, they would go 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's how that's going to work. Now, each spot up here can only hold 1 cube as well. And so the next time that someone wants to place 3 hikers together to do a camp, they're only going to get 2 points. So you can see how this works. I would take my hikers off here. These hikers are lost. I will not get them back. They go out of the game. And I will place 3 of my camps here on the spots that they were in. And that's how that works. Now, back to if I had taken this animal here, put one of my hikers there, then the Sherpa would go into region 2, and that would dictate where the pink player has to play next. And this is going to continue some of the other ways that you score points in this game. You're going to trade in different animals. This line right here is number of mismatched animals. And so I'm wanting to turn in a group of animals that don't match. And if I've got 3 of them, I can claim 5 points here for non-matching animals. If I have 4, I can get 6 points. 5 will give me 7. If I get 6, all 6 different animals, I'll get 8 points. This line right here is animals that are all the same. And again, only 1 cube can go in each of these squares, giving yourself the points. Now back to what these animals do. As I mentioned, there are 4 that have special abilities that you can use for them, and you will move them down to this end of the board once you have used that ability. The different powers are listed here on the bottom of the card. So the snow leopard here allows me to move 1 hiker with another hiker that is adjacent, and it doesn't have to be my own. So for instance, I could have a blue hiker here, and let's say the pink player has a hiker there. Now, anywhere that is touching is adjacent, but also these white lines are touching. And so if I use that white snow leopard, I could switch these 2 spots right here like so. I'm not sure what all these animals are here. I think that is the tar is what it is called in the rule book. If it allows me to switch 1 hiker with any animal, you can see how that would work. I don't want to have to explain that in detail to you all. This deer here allows me to swap any 2 animals that are anywhere on the board. Does not have to be adjacent. It could be anywhere out here. The yak is going to allow me to move the Sherpa so that I don't have to necessarily go in the region that the other player picked for me. The Barrel, this blue animal here, can be used as any other animal type when trading, so it's a bit of a wild animal. This last one, the red panda here, when you pick it up, whenever you place your hiker there and you get to gain one of these, you are going to gain 1 point immediately so long as you are not ahead of your opponent. At the beginning of the game, you are going to be tied at 0 points, and so you can immediately pick one of these up and move ahead. Or if you're in last, you can move 1 point up whenever you pick up one of these red pandas. And that's pretty much the gist of the game. I've explained all of the basic rules here. There is one other module that you can play with. You've got a deck of 6 cards here. You're going to shuffle these up, give each player 1 at the beginning of the game, and it's a secret little objective here. Each card is going to have a highlighted number on the top here, and that is just going to simply tell you your special region. At the end of the game, if I have any of my camps in the 4 spots on the board here, I'm going to get 2 extra points. If I have a hiker, I'm going to get 1 extra point. And that's it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the insert here. And this one's real simple. You've got a cardboard insert with a big well for all of your bagged items to go into. Then on top of that, you're going to put the player boards. The game board folds in half. You'll put the rule book on top of that. Very simple. And there you have it. That is Nanga Parbat. Let's go back up top and share our thoughts on this one.
And we're back, and now you get to see some gameplay footage of a game between Sam and I in Nanga Parbat. So Sam, this is a game in which you've got lots of different animeeples, which is a favorite of mine. Having animal meeples is always a plus in a game. But you're also trying to strategically pick which animal you're going to take, because the number you take it from determines where your opponent gets to go next. And also you want to try to get your hikers in the same spot. Tell me your thoughts as you tried to find your way throughout this game.
I mean, initially looking at it, I loved the animals. I love the colors. I think it was a very interesting setup. The pyramid aspect of it, or I guess the mountain aspect of it, all was really good. I do think figuring out the game took me some time. Figuring out what my goals were and how to accomplish those goals. Figuring out my strategy took me longer than I typically like in a game.
Now, I will agree with that. Even as a gamer, I found as I was getting into this game, it wasn't
it wasn't something that just naturally came to me to figure out, oh, I need to do this to do this and to do that and to do well in this. It was one where I would make a move and then I would immediately realize, oh, that wasn't a great move to have made. I should have done this instead. And then I'll say to myself, okay, I'm going to do that the next turn. And then I go and I do something else and I feel like, oh no, I made another mistake.
Yeah.
And so you sort of kind of, or at least my experience with it is that I fumbled my way through this and I somehow do get to a point where I start scoring points and I start to feel like, okay, now I've got something going, but it takes a minute to get to that point. So I do agree with you on that. This is an abstract kind of game because you're moving these animals to your board to take actions and you're wanting to get your hikers all in the same area and you're going to exchange these different sets in. None of that really kind of speaks to the theme of climbing a mountain necessarily. But I think it's a spatial abstract game. You want to try to put these things in certain spots on the board so that you can cash them in for points. Talk about that. Is that a fun thing for you as a non-gamer?
I kept getting lost in what do I need to do? How do I get the points? What do I need to trade in? There's just a lot of thinking involved, which isn't a bad thing. Makes me sound like
I hate to think.
But it's just, my focus was split.
Okay.
I was focused on the mountain and what I needed to get, but then trading them in. It was just a lot.
Okay. Yeah, and I think I can understand where you're coming at with that because it is a harder thing to kind of wrap your mind around. Now, is this a game that's super rules heavy and hard to understand? I don't think it is. I don't think it's a hard game to understand. I just think it's a hard game to be good at.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think it was a complicated, complex game. It's just, you really have to play it a couple times to know how to play it well.
And that being said, I do think this is a game that you can get more and more skilled at the more and more you've played it. And the more skilled you get, the more fun it's going to be. So I think this is one that you need to play a few times to really get a good feeling for it and understand what kind of game it is and how to do well in it. And I think you'll start to have more fun as you do that. For me, one of the things that I enjoyed the most were the different actions that you could take with the animals, because you're gaining these animals not only to put your hikers in certain spots, but also so that you can take different actions with those animals, because you need to take those actions to move your hikers around or to move an opponent out of the spot that you need to be in, to move animals out of different spots, to move the Sherpa. I mean, all of these actions are going to be things that really help you to do well throughout the course of the game. And I thought that was a cool thing that you could do with those animals, moving them down on your board to do different actions. So I really enjoyed that. All right, so let's get into pros and cons on this one then, Sam. Talk a little bit about the things you really enjoyed with Nanga Parbat.
I think it's a really pretty game. I think that it's well constructed. Everything's very clear what you need to do, where you need to do it, and I appreciate that. It's a fairly short game, 30 minutes. So I think all of that bodes well to a good game.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it's very organized. This board is not super busy. Whatever the opposite of that term would be how I would describe this. Because
it's not boring, not plain.
It's what you need.
Concise.
Yeah, it's concise. That's a great way to put it. The score chart up in or not the score chart, but where you're getting your points from up in the top left, and placing your blocks and covering those spaces up it works very well. The score track works well. Your own personal boards work well. I think it does the table presentation very well in this game. It doesn't take a whole lot of space. It's got a small footprint is another thing I would say about this one. And I think there's a lot of game in a small box here. You're doing a lot of thinking for a 30-minute game that doesn't look intimidating, but as you get into it, you're kind of like, oh wow, I gotta think about this. So, any cons with this one?
I think it's just, as a non-gamer, I think it's a little thinky for a non-gamer. There's a lot you have to consider. There's a lot to figure out your strategy. It's definitely a game where one time isn't enough to really do well at it. You want to play it a couple of times. And I don't know if that's a great fit for a non-gamer.
Yeah, we've said this in other videos before, that when gaming with a non-gamer or even a casual gamer, you really have to consider games in which you're going to need to play 2, 3, 4 times before you really start to feel like, I've got a good handle on this game.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Because I think you're going to frighten them away.
You may not get the opportunity to do that gaming with non-gamers. You might get one chance and one chance only before that person's like, no thanks, I don't want any more of that. And so unfortunately with a game like this, I really enjoy it. I had a good time with it.
And I think you can see that, hey, I do need to play more and I will get better at it and I will enjoy it more. Whereas a non-gamer is like, I didn't do well, I'm done.
Exactly. And that's my thoughts exact on this game. And that's the divide there between a gamer and non-gamer kind of mindset when it comes to a game just like this. I can see that and I enjoy that struggle, and I feel like if I do play it and invest in it, I will get better.
I don't want to struggle.
But yeah, exactly. I don't want to invest in that. I don't want to have to go through that kind of experience. Is what you meet with when you play a game like this. So, scale of 1 to 10, love to hate. What are you going to give Nanga Parbat?
Definitely from a non-gamer's perspective, I'd probably give it a 6.8.
Okay, all right, that's higher than what I was expecting you to give.
I mean, I know that if I played it again, I would do better. And I know that Lance will probably make me play it again. So, and it's not one that I would say...
Make you?
that I would say, no, I really don't want to. I'd play it again.
Okay.
I think I played again, and I think I could do better.
Yeah, for me, I really did enjoy this one. I thought it was a clever design, a clever way of doing set collection and the abstract spatial element to it. Things that I really enjoy in board gaming. And so all of this game really works well for me. The one drawback I might have with it is it being just a 2-player game. It's a head-to-head experience. And as is the case a lot of times in those games, if the divide between the 2 players in skill level is pretty big, then one person's going to run away with it and the games aren't going to be super competitive. And so when you're playing a game like this, you want to have kind of equal skill level so that the game is competitive. That's the one thing I would say about that. And that's not necessarily of this game, but of just 2-player games in general. So I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a 7.4 on Nanga Parbat. And there you go. That's our thoughts on this game from Dr. Finn's Games. Go check it out.
Make sure to like and subscribe and push that bell button so you get notifications of all our new content.
I'm Lance.
I'm Sam.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.